Hi, welcome back. So really quickly before the video starts, I was supposed to do a viewer summon stream, but some IRL stuff happened and I couldn't do it. Instead, I recorded footage for the only person who didn't opt out, but the audio got corrupted unfortunately. The footage you see right now is the summoning footage I was pulling for Avienna. Got Yanqing at 77 pity, then Lingsha right afterwards at 10 pity, then didn't get anything after 56 pity on the Lycone banner as always, proving I have simply decent luck. To get things started with today's video, it's been a really long time since we got a dedicated DOT support in Honkai StarL, and with every other team getting stronger and stronger, Acheron getting Jiaoqiu, FUA teams getting Fei Xiao and a Topaz rerun, and Super Break getting Lingsha, DOT teams have been getting some flack from some people saying they're not really relevant anymore, which is completely incorrect. Today we're going to be looking over why DOT teams are still good, why people think they're not as good anymore, and how they can be made even better to try and compete with the meta teams today. I'll also talk about what advantages or disadvantages DOT has over these other meta teams. Before we start, you should like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Join the Express Run Discord server for a community filled with content like this. By the way, only a very small percentage of everyone watching is subscribed, so you should do your part and click that button. Now let's get on to it. So first things first, Jiaoqiu is a pretty good DOT support himself, but he isn't actually better than the best DOT support, Black Swan. When comparing both their kits at E0, while both of them can apply their respective DOTs very efficiently, Jiaoqiu's DOTs do a lot less damage than Black Swan's. Jiaoqiu's can only stack up to 5, while Black Swan's can stack up to 50, resetting every enemy turn, so reliably you can get around 10 to 20 without her ultimate depending on enemy speed, then 20 to 35 with her ultimate depending on enemy speed. In a previous video I definitely lowballed these numbers, but after replaying optimal DOT teams in the past couple of weeks more often, these are the numbers I got reliably. You may be able to do a team with Welt and Black Swan to try and get 50 Arcana stacks, but it's unknown whether that's any better than a Rohan Mei team, especially since DOT loves for enemies to take turns instead of avoid them. Jiaoqiu can increase damage taken by enemies by 35% for all types of damage, including DOT, so his 15% all damage taken increase obviously doesn't help here. Black Swan instead can reduce enemy defense by 20.8% with her skill, and with her ult Epiphany, first and foremost she allows Arcana stacks to stay on the enemy for one turn longer, allowing you to stack them up higher of course, but Epiphany also increases damage taken by enemies by 25% during their own turn. Her Arcana stacks also do AoE damage and ignore a further 20% of the enemy's defense when triggering after they reach 7 stacks or higher. Both of these characters, by the way, are very similar in performance when both are at E2, and both of them make every single DOT team incredibly strong. And just to add, Jiaoqiu's Lycone is better for general debuffing than Black Swan's Lycone, and the opposite is true for DOT if Black Swan is on the team. I've went into both their kits a lot more in depth in my 5-star rating video, so you should go check that out if you want a deeper look. My point is, with this small little rant I guess, is that we haven't got a DOT character yet that can either outclass the characters we already have, or at least be a lot more dedicated to DOT like Black Swan is, and compete with her without being objectively worse. I think the characters being a few months old at the very least puts people off, since they may see an older character as being objectively worse, and we will get into why that isn't true in Kafka and Black Swan's case in a bit. The character that would really quote-unquote save DOT will have to be a little different than anything we have right now. We already have Rohan Mei, who is a great DOT support because of everything she does, although she isn't dedicated to DOT, and people would probably prefer using her in a Super Break team. Instead, I'd love to have a character that maybe instead of having a strong DOT themselves like Black Swans that can do hundreds of thousands of damage every cycle, can amplify the number of stacks of any type of DOT enemies can receive, either by buffing allies directly or debuffing enemies with their own debuff that can also increase DOT damage. However, I also don't see them adding a dedicated DOT support or DOT detonator like Kafka anytime soon, because it seems like HSR will start going into a new meta, which shall not be named, which probably won't contain any DOT characters, unfortunately. However, I also don't think DOT needs any quote-unquote saving at all, at least not yet anyway. In the background gameplay of this video, you can see my DOT team at beating the shit out of boss Kafka. Now this Kafka does have lightning resistance, meaning your playable Kafka will do less damage, but the hilarious thing is, DOT teams are still insanely strong against her because of her wind weakness, meaning Black Swan eats her for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Both in fanfiction and gameplay. There's also a lack of very fast enemies in the game, you know, other than the big Wolfman coming soon, which means Black Swan's Arcana stacks can also stack up many times, and even when an enemy is very fast, like the big Wolfman, it means they'll just take DOT damage more often, in smaller increments. Now granted, I do have E1S1 Rohan Mei, which inflates the numbers a little bit, but switching out Rohan Mei with my Sampo, I'm still clearing in almost the same exact time because of 1, the extra DOT application Sampo is giving, and 2, because Sampo can also detonate wind shear DOTs like his and Black Swan's with a skill, and not to mention, he can also increase DOT damage with his ult. Now this team is rather harder to play because of the skill point negativity, and in turn does less damage than a team with Ruan-Mei, but the fact that a team composed of only 2 limited 5-stars that came out months and months ago, and only got their latest rerun a few days ago, can still reliably clear this MOC, and every MOC boss that has a lightning and or wind weakness in a decent amount of time speaks volumes for how good DOT still is. Now I will add that the enemy having wind weakness is a lot more valuable than them having lightning weakness, because Black Swan's DOTs are a lot stronger than Kafka's. So would I love to see a new DOT character? Absolutely. This is 100% my favorite playstyle in the game. It always works for every single game mode, from Pure Fiction to Apocalyptic Shadow to the MOC. In fact, I cleared all of these because of my DOT team, and having another DOT support will make this team that much better and more versatile. There was some hope that the new 5-star Tingyun form will be the next best DOT support, but it seems like so far she's going to deal with Super Break, unfortunately. So right now, I think DOT is more than good enough. I've always rated Kafka as a 9 out of 10 in every rating video I've done, but from now on, I think I will be rating her a 9.5 out of 10. While not achieving quite the damage of Boot Hill, Acheron, Feishao, and Firefly with any E0, S0, or S1 teammate, unlike the previous best DPS in the game, Don Honkai and Jiaoqiu, she can still reliably clear any game mode you need her to in a pretty good amount of time, since her damage isn't front-loaded but instead happens very consistently over time. You know, damage over time. I will add, by the way, that I know some form of a DOT team can still indeed clear both sides of the current MOC. My DOT team at its best could clear the first half in 3 cycles from 30 to 27. My friend's Karan team also helped him clear the Aventurine boss after he beat the first half's boss Kafka with his Feishao team. I will also add that my DOT team cleared the first half just as fast as my friend's Feishao team, and he has pretty good builds, but that's just anecdotal and because my Black Swan and Kafka have pretty good builds. The big question is though, is DOT still worth it at the current stage of the game? In the last banner with Feishao, Robin, Black Swan, and Kafka, did those that pull Feishao and Robin get a bigger or smaller upgrade than those who got Black Swan and Kafka? Well, quite obviously, Feishao is a lot stronger, and so is Robin, and they both definitely provide a lot more value for any account than Black Swan and Kafka. You can build Feishao very effectively with 4-star characters like Hauntmarch 7th, who is also a free E6 character, who is arguably the second best 4-star character in the game at E6. She was unfortunately beaten by Moza, who is the best E6 4-star currently, and if you're curious, in my opinion, the third best 4-star is a shared spot between Tingyun and Pella, followed by Gallagher, who takes the number 4 spot. I'll also add that Kafka is a contender for the easiest character to build and play in the game, needing only as much attack, as much speed, and around 30% effect hit range substats as you can get. Unlike Feishao, who of course needs crit, attack, and speed, and crit is notorious for being annoying to get. However, for the same amount of investment, Feishao will still probably deal more damage, and in terms of the long game, both Feishao and Kafka will get better and better the more characters get released. Feishao will get better with more follow-up characters, and Kafka will get better with more DOT characters. However, just like how Dr. Ratio got replaced by Feishao is at a lot higher risk of being replaced if enemy health got big enough to warrant a much bigger character power creep curve, while Kafka will only get stronger if another character that can detonate DOTs arrives, since they can just be used together, arguably more effectively than how another follow-up attack team main DPS would be used with Feishao. In terms of Acheron, by the way, Acheron is obviously better than Kafka, but since Karan is actually a viable team choice, if a character comes out just like Jiaoqiu and Black Swan that can actually debuff a good amount and apply good DOTs that are good enough to keep both Kafka and Acheron's damage standards satisfied, then they can also be used together pretty effectively. Even more so than now, and in terms of Boot Hill and Firefly, then Ruan-Mei is most effectively used with Super Break and Boot Hill rather than DOT, so if you're torn between using Ruan-Mei for a DOT team comp or a Super Break / Boot Hill team comp, then definitely go for the latter option because of the much higher damage output. And lastly, I would not recommend E0 DOT teams for any zero cycling metaslave at all, because the overtime part of damage over time takes a couple cycles. However, most players don't care about zero cycling, definitely including me, so I'll have fun with my DOT team. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and join the Expression and Discord server for a community filled with content like this, and I will see you next time.